Hello and welcome to episode 27 of the Carlson Cards podcast. We have on today a phenomenal guest. He goes by at PK32 Sports Cards. PK is his name. Jaguars are his game. We're going to chat some sports cards here today. A little bit of football. I know you obviously, PK, we've talked. You have some diverse interests when it comes to football and other sports as well. You do a lot of Boston area sports, but also, heavy Jaguars team collector, which is just going to be awesome because I'll be honest, I had to cheat before this and kind of look up the Jaguars' history. I knew they were good right away. I thought they had won a Super Bowl, but I was wrong. They didn't win one right away. They made it to the AFC Championship. And then thanks to you guys, we lost to John Elway in the Super Bowl. The Packers did. So it looks like we have a rival there we have in common. But I just want to thank you for hopping on. And how's everything going? How have you been?
Absolutely, man. Top of the morning. I've been great. Jaguars are playing great. I'm a teacher. School's going very well. I'm up. Cheers to everybody. Usually I post beers, but here's a little coffee to start us off. Although I do have one for you and me when we get going.
Perfect. Yeah, got a pregame for the so we're recording this on November 5th, and there is a big Germany game later today, so that'll be pretty exciting. With what is Dolphins and Chiefs, obviously, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What's your prediction for that game, out of curiosity? Because everyone will get to listen how wrong we were, a week and a half.
That's true. That's the good thing about this. You can go back and edit in a few days. Like, oh wow. Honestly, everybody thinks of the Chiefs as this dynamic video game offense, and you've kind of watched them this year. They've almost turned into the Jets. They struggle moving the ball. They struggle getting first downs, but their defense is just dominating. And I don't think people give them credit for that. Watching the Jets, I kind of enjoy watching defensive football. And I know people kind of bitch this year about the Thursday night games, how they're always like 9-6. Oh God, fumbles, field goals, but it's a great aspect. Even the Jaguars, people talk about Trevor Lawrence and Etienne. They've got a great young defensive squad, and they're balling right now. And I think that's part of the reason they're 6-2. So, with this game, I think the Chiefs D can shut down the Dolphins, but this is also the same team that put up 70 points a few weeks ago. So, I think that's kind of why people have no idea what to expect, especially with it being out of the country. Sometimes people just kind of play it up on that kind of stage. So I don't know. I'm excited. I don't really have a dog in either fight, but just looking forward to watching a good game,
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm actually, I expect Chiefs to shut them down pretty good, but we'll see, because it seems like at least I have Tua as a fantasy quarterback, and my brother has, ironically, Tyreek and Waddle, and he's like top of the league, and I'm middling, of course, because the receivers clearly are the better players in terms of fantasy. But it's been interesting following along too. They blow teams out, and then it seems like some weeks they just can't move the ball, so it's kind of interesting how that works. But that's the NFL for you, I guess.
Absolutely.
One thing about it too, like with the Germany game, it'll be interesting because I know last year I actually don't know if I watched it. I don't know if we had it, but you saw the highlights, and they had like the chants and the crowd and the stands. It was just insane. I'm excited. It'll be interesting to see how this one goes.
Yeah, if you lived in Denmark, I'm sure you went to some kind of soccer game, or it's just people get wild over there. They're arm in arm, and they're singing, and they're probably pretty lit and just getting nice and rowdy just for a game. It's great to see, though.
Yeah, I did get to go to an Italian soccer game when I visited a friend in Italy, and that was, it wasn't even like a top of the league, it's just middling teams, and it was very, very, very cool. But I was going to ask, so I know maybe interesting kind of start here. You set up at a card show yesterday. I was curious how that went. What are the learning experiences? Was it kind of your first time? Like, how did everything go?
Yesterday is kind of an odd example to use. As you know, I'm a teacher, but I also have a side gig. I teach driver's ed. So
okay.
It's mainly a summer job, but once in a while we do these little Saturday sessions during the winter. So you think about it, being in the car with 3 16-year-olds for 7 hours is kind of, wow, that's kind of scary. But I actually had to do driver's ed yesterday. So I set up, a buddy of mine has a table at the local Ramada. Here in Jacksonville, you would expect that you'd be able to find Jaguars. You'd be able to find, late 90s, early 00s when they were good, I'm about the only one that brings this stuff. It's kind of weird. There'll be 70, 80 tables, and I'm about the only one with this stuff. So I set up with a buddy just for about an hour because I had to do driver's ed yesterday. But as you asked, was it your first time? I started about 3 months ago, and, a buddy just gets a table. He gives me like 3 feet. I bring my little one showcase, and it's basically just late 90s Jags. I'll bring dupes or things I'm deciding to consolidate on or whatnot. And I usually do pretty well. Yesterday wasn't a lot of foot traffic, but I was only there, 8:30 to 9:30. It's not like those huge shows in the Northeast where there's 100 people wrapped around the building, waiting for it to open. It's just kind of something that's there. And when I came back into the hobby, I thought these shows would be like when I was a kid. And I'll be 48 this month, so I grew up in the junk wax era. The Knights of Columbus, and I thought when I got back in the hobby, it'd be like these old guys with dirty fingernails and look like used car salesmen, and the Sam's Club jeans, and just kind of hawking all these. But it's been kind of surreal, especially with Instagram. Connecting to everybody. A lot of cool cats like yourself. Some young, articulate. Just the opposite of what I would have expected. I mean, those guys are still out there, but that's kind of what I expected from what I grew up with. But it was great. The foot traffic was all right, but like I said, it was early. But I've done pretty well in the last couple months. It's just fun. You know what I mean? Just to sit down, talk the hobby with people, see people locally, make a couple connections and whatnot. It's a small show. I've never been to a large, national or regional show, but I enjoy it.
That's awesome. Do you find people actively look for the 90s, or is it kind of like they stumble on your table and are like, oh, wait, look, I remember like that kind of thing? I find that sometimes I bring a lot of like the 2000s when I set up at shows, and I don't do it as much anymore. But when I set up too, it's a lot of like, oh, wow, that's cool. And then the other half, the people are like, oh, there's nothing recent. I'm gone. I'm out of here. Like, is that similar
It's
for
more
you?
of that. I kind of get
Yeah.
that nostalgic vibe. People say, oh, wow, I remember this guy, or these are cool. I like the way this does this. They'll kind of look at them, but I don't get a lot of conversation except for the same people I've seen.
Yeah.
But like I said, I've only done this 2 or 3 times, so I'll definitely keep you in the loop. But it's something fun to do if you ever want to just go get a table and not even I'm not in this for money, but I like when my cards find good homes, and you can kind of tell like, oh, this guy collects this. This guy's not here to get this off of me for 30 and flip for 50, or I don't know.
It's
That's
pretty
not what
hard
it's
to
about
do
for
when
me.
the sets are obscure and not a lot of people know about them, which is fun. That means it's, I always like that. It's kind of means you're into a niche that's not super mainstream, which is always neat.
Well, you said you had to do some research on the Jags. I mean,
Yeah.
the kind of joke with us Jags collectors is, why do we even spend money on this team? They're horrendous. The media doesn't know about us. But one of the examples I use is watching the Chiefs actually this morning. Jawan Taylor, their right tackle, was a Jag. He's been here the last 4 years before now, and the Chiefs gave him like, I don't know, like $80 million, something like that. And now you can see, because the Chiefs are America's darling. They're on TV every week. They're like, oh my God, that guy false starts he starts a half second early. And I'm like, he's been doing that for 4 years, but nobody knows about this town. Nobody watches the Jags. And it's kind of been that way for about 2 decades. When they started out, 1995, the franchise started, and they made the AFC Championship game twice in the first 5 years. They made it in their second year, which was the fastest for any expansion team. They were solid from the get-go. They had Brunell, Tom Coughlin was the coach. They really did well the first few years, and then just the 2000s, the 2010s, there were some dark years, and there was that one fluke year. I
Blake
want to say it
Bortles,
was
baby.
2017. Yeah, Blake Bortles, the boat. In January 2018, I've got to say, not even as a hobbyist, just as a person, that was the most excruciating 4 hours of my life. Because I haven't got to tell you, I grew up about 5 minutes from Gillette Stadium. So growing up in New England, the Patriots in my blood. I've got a Red Sox shirt on right now, and it's just seeing those two teams play. I mean, the Jaguars defense was legendary that year. I mean, they set records like the '85 Bears, and they just really couldn't move the ball on offense. But you're just like, all right, Bortles, just be a game manager. No pick sixes, don't fumble. But those 4 hours were so tough on me because my daughters have grown up here. It was great to see all week for the city, and I even had Jag stuff on all week. But when it came to game time, I had the Gronkowski jersey. I was with my blood. But that's about when it started changing. I graduated college here in Jacksonville in 2000 and just kind of stayed down here. So I've been in each city about 25 years, and you kind of, I don't know, maybe you'll grow up, move to a big city, and you're in Packer country, but then you say you move to the Southeast, you're like, this team's kind of growing on me. And every year it's a little more. And that's about what did it the last couple of years. Now I'm over the 50-50 threshold. And now it's like, you probably can't see this garage, but it's my man cave. It's about 80% Jags, but I still have the Patriots everywhere, helmets, Tom Brady stuff all over the place. And it just kind of, it's in your blood, but it's tough when you live in a city somewhere else, and that's home, and it's difficult.
So have you found your collecting has evolved similarly? So if you're saying like around that maybe 2018, 2019 is when you started really drifting towards the Jags, Was that similar for collecting? Like prior to that, was it mostly, let's say, Tom Brady, Boston sports focus, and then after that you kind of shifted over to the Jaguars? Is that how this works?
It, I've had a couple hiatuses, and growing up as a
Mhm.
teen, with the Griffies and the junk wax. I was a teenager. I graduated high school in '93, so when Upper Deck came out, there wasn't really serial numbered cars, autographed cars. It was just cardboard. And literally, when you look at the four aspects of Beckett, the centering, corners, edges, surface to me is there ink smudges? Is there some kind of cardboard bubble, whatnot? Now it's like they're made out of metal. There's scratches and dimples, and that's the one subgrade I struggle with looking at a raw car. I'm like, oh, this thing looks great, and then someone's like, oh, it's got this, it's got that, and to an old guy like me, I'm like, okay. But I went to college, and the only card I took with me to college was I brought the Bledsoe SP foil rookie. So we had gone my senior year in high school. They were 2-14. So this is for all you Browns fans out there and people, who follow a team that's perennially 1-15. The Patriots were that in the early 1990s. They were 1-15, 2-14, and that's how they got the number one overall pick. But then they brought in Parcells, they got Bledsoe, and I brought that card to college with me. And I just did not collect it all in college. So I actually missed out on this whole era. I graduated college in 2000. I never knew what a PMG was, any of that kind of stuff. And I did get an engineering job. I was doing GIS, and I did that in Fort Lauderdale for about 4 years. And I started an eBay account. I really got into, collecting. I'm like, oh, graded cards. This is cool. And I was actually a hoops guy. And I had a Kobe rookie that ended up making up to about $100,000. And I sold it for $4,500 in 2009, but I had bought it for $2,000 the year before. I had more than doubled my money, which was unheard of back then. And I wasn't in it for that, obviously. Life hit. I sold my whole collection in 2009, but I didn't actually come back till about 2018.
Okay.
So that's about when the tide started turning with Jags. And I was teaching, and I was looking for a way to reward my students. So I was like, these guys will do anything for recess, but the principal is going to kind of get on me if I take these kids out to recess 6 times a day. So, what else can I do? And I loved collecting. So I was like, let me try giving out cards. And I had some Topps Chrome refractors. I brought in the year with like Devontae Adams and Odell.
14, I think.
2014 Topps Chrome. And I had some of the oranges and the kids were like, whoa, this one. So I started bringing it, and I ran out, and I'm like, all right, let me go to Walmart. I started buying some blasters, and I'm like, this is getting expensive, but it really got me hooked. And at the time, I really wasn't, I didn't have a niche, but with my heart, I went with Brady. I started collecting Brady refractors. And on eBay, I started chatting with a couple of guys, and got to throw a shout out to Jason, Sportfish card collector. He was like, hey, I'm on Instagram. I got this group of buddies. We chat about, we all collect Tom Brady. I should invite you in our little chat, and you should join, set up an account. And I was like, what? I had a personal IG, you know what I mean? Like cards, like get out of here, like we're dorks, kind of thing. But I did it, and it just took off from there. Now we're in about 20 chats, to be honest. But that's kind of how it evolved. I did some high-end Brady. And what I started realizing in the Boston area, there's so many guys that collect Brady. There's so many guys that collect Red Sox. There's so much money. And he just got too expensive. You know what I mean? It's like I'm looking at Brady's as I had a lot of gems that were like $100. I'd move a bunch of those and try to get a bigger Brady kind of thing. But it became every Brady was 4 digits. And it was just like, I had a side Jaguar PC, and I honestly really didn't know a lot of the cards from the era. I knew what a PMG was. I didn't know anything about certain rubies, credentials, medallions. All this was kind of new to me because when the era happened, I was in school. I never really got to see them. So I evolved that way by starting a little side PC. But then here's where the Boston connection came back in. In about, I think it was early 2021, I sold off a lot of my Jaguars. And it's been a journey for sure, because what I wanted to do was collect every card that Collier Stremski ever had. He was my favorite Red Sox guy growing up. I actually met him when I was in 3rd grade. I won an essay contest. My grandmother entered me, and so I got to play baseball with him for a day. And he autographed the ball for me, and I played ball with it like later that week. My dad was like, "What are you doing?" But Yastrzemski, I was trying to go for his entire run of 24 tops in PSA 8. And it was difficult in the early 60s trying to find anything above a 7. It got expensive. And some of the certain 60s issues, when he won the Triple Crown, the 68 PSA 8 gets expensive. But I started spending a lot of money on Yastrzemski's, and I did the whole run except 2 of them that I had left. And I was like, you know what? It's almost like once you complete something, it's almost like, what am I on to now? So I got rid of those 2 of Yastrzemski. I always care about where something goes. And a guy bought the whole collection. And I was like, you know what? Let me do this Jags thing full time. It's a lot cheaper, a lot less people collect them. And that was kind of my mindset. You know, I love collecting, but it's hard when you're trying to collect Brady's and there's just so much competition, you know. So that's kind of where mine evolved.
I've heard people reference it too. It's kind of hard when you have the, like, I think we all want to be the mountaintop, like the best of something, or at least, a lot of us do. And maybe it comes from like being competitive with sports growing up and stuff. But I know, like, I've had guests on too mention that with Brady, where it's like, okay, Jason, for instance, how are you or I gonna ever catch him unless, right? I mean, for anyone that knows Jason's collection, it's absolutely obscene. At the National, I met him for the first time, and he just casually showed me the 2006 finest superfractor and a PSA 10. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a pretty big card, man. That looks really cool.
But one thing about Jason, it's like his collection's insane. He's just even that much better as a person, and we've never actually gotten to meet. He's actually come down here on vacation a couple times. His son and my daughter follow each other on Instagram, kind of thing. Like, I know when I meet him, he's one guy I'm gonna give a big hug to. He's an awesome dude, but a great advocate for the hobby for sure.
Yeah, definitely. No, and I agree with you, because that was even too chatting with them. His son Griffin and him, they're already like, oh, if you go down to Dallas, let us know, come visit. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have that plan, but that's very nice of you guys. Like that Midwestern niceness you feel from them, even though I think
hospitality, man. They say the Southern hospitality, but it's everywhere, man. It's even people in the Northeast. Everyone gives New York a bad vibe, Boston, but there's some great people up there for sure.
One comment I want to make that was kind of interesting, I've never really thought about this too much, but I feel like, and I'm kind of realizing this. So the reason I think you and I relate really well, and some of the other people I have on here, even though we're a different generation of age and whatever we grew up with, I think it's interesting because the time that we both somewhat collect, at least we have some overlap. You were in college, so not really collecting because life was busy. I wasn't even born yet, or I was like 5 years old, so never had the chance. And then it's cool because we now, like 25 years later, are coming back and collecting eras that we know the players, but we, don't know the sets, which I think is just kind of cool. I had never thought of that before, but that kind of makes sense to me now. I think that's probably why you see this, like, again, like my generation and your generation collecting this era. It seems like that's just my observation.
Sure. And it's interesting when you meet certain kids, your age, that have such an extensive knowledge of not only collecting, but just sports in general. Like one guy I want to throw out there, Adam, Sport Card King. Guy's half my age, but he will start whipping off, stats about Artis Gilmore and talking about in college and stuff with the ABA. And I'm like, how do you know about this stuff? You weren't even thought about for another 20 years. It's just amazing coming across it's not only cards, you just talk sports and life. And, we've talked a little bit briefly about group chats, but these guys become like brothers. It's like it's like a fraternity. You end up talking to them more than you talk to your own family in some instances. It's kind of surreal.
Well, it's kind of nice when life gets busier. Like for me, you have the groups of college friends, but everyone's all over the place. But then you have something like this where you make friends through, and it's so easy to pop on and just shoot a message and then run into a huge conversation. Then you're enjoying it. They're enjoying it. It seems like such a nice way to keep that, keep the social battery full when life is too busy to go travel to see all these people everywhere, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was wondering here, PK, now if we can pull up and maybe check out some of your amazing cards that we can touch on. I'm sure I'll have questions off of a lot of these. I think this is a nice segue. And one note here, I always mention this, and a lot of people listen on Spotify or, Apple Podcasts, that sort of thing. Others are on YouTube, but for those on podcasts, if we could just like describe the cards, they know what we're looking at. I always get a thank you from people when they're like, I want to know what we're seeing, describe it. So yeah, that'd be great here. Start with whatever one you want as well.
Sure thing. So it's kind of difficult picking a Rushmore. You said, choose your top 4 cards. And being so torn as a collector between Boston and Jacksonville, I was like, well, I have a Boston Rushmore and I have a Jacksonville Rushmore. So these 4 probably mean the most to me. I've actually trimmed down a lot of my Boston cards. I've moved a lot of Pedros, a lot of Brady's, and just basically kept the ones that meant the most to me. Not just the biggest cards. I got rid of some really high-end Brady's, but they were nicer, but they didn't mean as much to me, or I didn't like them. You just try to find one card of that player. What's your grail, in quotes, per se. Starting off here to the left, oh my God, there's one guy that emails me about this card like every month. I'm like, dude, this is a coffin card. It's not going anywhere. So I'm like, I want to get a nice Ted Williams 1/1. I mean, greatest hitter that ever lived. I mean, it's just amazing what he would have done had he not, been fighting in World War II 4 years, right in the middle of his prime. Yeah, it's just the numbers he was still able to put up. Guy was amazing. He just insane statistics. And I wanted a nice 1/1. And obviously, with him being passed away, my grandmother, the same one that won me the essay contest with Yastrzemski, she got a Ted Williams ball for me. She was at spring training, and the Red Sox, he used to be in Winter Haven before Fort Myers, and he was at a Denny's and signed a ball. I still have it to this day, but I wanted on a card an autograph. So I saw this triple threads 1/1, and it ended up, it was probably around 2K. I had to move a lot of stuff. It was just spur of the moment, like, ooh, I need this. So I don't even know what I bid on it, but I was taking that thing home. And it has 4 game-used pieces. There are 2 pieces of game-used bat, and there are 2 game-used pieces of jersey. And it says ball game, kind of like the top Sterling used to do, where they try to spell something out in the memorabilia. So there's a little baseball, and then it says game with the GA is the bat and the ME is the clock. And then it has a cut auto from a check. Now, it's a perfect looking auto. I don't know. On the back, you can't really see on the front here. On the back, Beckett always gives out 10 autos. They gave it an 8. Now, I've been looking at a lot of Teds, and there are a lot of 7s out there. And I'm convinced it's just because the way they play, it's a perfect. There's no missing ink. It's not running off anything. I think the way they placed it, they cut off part of the T, like they shoved the check too far to the left, kind of thing. It's a perfect specimen, but means a lot to me. And just the way you shine that hollow foil. And I think I got it in the picture there. If you look in the bottom left, you can see it says 1/1. It's just really small. Just fascinating to have a Ted Williams 1/1. Not many people do. And it's just to have game used memorabilia and an autograph, and to be in a True Gem Plus slab. I was like, I need this.
That's amazing. How, excuse my lack of baseball knowledge, how long did Williams live? I know Mickey Mantle, lived real long, signed for a long time. How long did Ted Williams, how long was he around?
He was probably mid-80s, I want to say.
So good.
Yeah.
He got a good long life too. That's good to hear.
Yeah, I remember the 99 All-Star game was at Fenway, and that's where Pedro started the game by striking out, McGuire and all that whole run of 5 players, and they all met at the mound, and he was in a wheelchair. He was not in his final days. I think he passed about 15 years ago.
Okay.
But he lasted his career. He started in 39 and he retired in 60. But what's amazing is when he retired in 1960, that was Yastrzemski's rookie year. And then he played, over 20 years. So left field in Fenway was manned between 3 guys for over 50 years, because then when Yastrzemski retired, Jim Rice came up in the late 70s. And the 3 Hall of Famers all played left field in front of that monster. So he lasted about 21 years. But like I said, he took those 4 years off. He was about 24, 25, 26 years old, right in the prime of his career, and he went to fight.
Was that a decision on his part, or was it a MLB, most players around the age that would have been drafted, they all got drafted and had to go?
Believe he was one of the only guys. Oh, he was all for his country. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's
Military.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's like that's got to tie into the allure of the player here then too, in the legacy. Like, that's just incredible. Good for him.
Yeah, he gets a bad rap because I guess he didn't acknowledge the media. They made a big stink about him not tipping his cap his final game. A lot of battles with the media, but media's media.
Yeah, he's his own guy.
Right.
Awesome. What's the next card you want to touch on here?
Next card I've got here, Tom Brady 2018 National Treasures. This is a hollow gold auto, numbered to 10. And what I liked about this one, this is the year they did the top 100. And Brady was actually player number 1. This was I think it was for the 2017 season. That year they played the Jaguars in the AFC Championship game. I love the picture. It's just a complete action shot. It's the auto at the bottom has that white, almost airbrush look, which is perfectly situated under his action shot. The hollow gold shines. Just an excellent design by National Treasures. And I just love that Brady was in the top 100. He made number 1. I was able to find something numbered to 10, autographed, True Gem Plus. It's just another one of those ones. And hey, Beckett gave that one a 10. So, but yeah.
Is this an example of I know you had said you kind of let go of some of the bigger Brady's at one point and kind of decided, what are the ones you want to hold on to? Was this in that batch where it's like, this is the one out of what I have I want to hold on to, or did you come back and get this one after the fact?
With me, the dilemma was more so autos. I kind of split it in my head. I had 3 or 4 autos at the most, I believe, and refractors. And the captain, Kevin Randall, he and I had the only 2011 red 25. That red Topps Chrome red refractor was my favorite. The red throwback jersey had said All Pro on the front. That was the one I wanted to keep the longest. But then when I was consolidating, I had those 2 left. And I ended up moving it to one of our other buddies in our Brady chat. And I just thought if I was going to keep a Brady card, as much as I love that one, I needed to have an autograph. You notice the Boston Legends here, all 4 of these are going to be autographs. And I felt that meant more to me to have something with their autograph on it as well.
That's awesome. I appreciate the insight there.
Next, another legend, Larry Bird. So this is 2017-18 Select Gold. And, those of us in the football world who are huge into like the 05 and 06 finest gold X Fractors, these look exactly the same. They're numbered to 10 as well. What Select did, this checked all the boxes for me. It was gold. It was an X Fractor, a nice blue on-card auto, True Gem Plus, and I ended up winning this thing super cheap. I don't know how. I don't know what it's worth. I really don't care, but I had to have this card,
I like this the select years for these too. I've always appreciated. Even one set that comes to mind is like the in-flight autographs or something like that. I just remember that I remember seeing a Kobe once, and I was like, "These are so cool." And this is neat too, because it's obviously different design, different insert set, but it has that same great look that reminds you of finest, like you just said. That's really awesome.
Yeah, the in-flights are excellent. I had a Jason Tatum that I ended up moving to a friend. I loved how the design, they actually looked in flight and they gave it a nice white window for the autograph. Those are very nice. I do like those.
And I think they run very high, so that's why I never bought one. But I'd love to at some point. That's
Well,
fun.
I think those in-flights are numbered to 99. So I mean, there are a lot of them out there, but they're just so sexy. People want them.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Awesome. What's the final card here on the Boston Mount Rushmore?
So the last card I have here, this is a Pedro Martinez 99 SP signature. And anyone who collects baseball will probably tell you from that era, this is just a classic, timeless design. It's not serial numbered or anything. These other ones have been 1-1s or up to 10. There are gold 50s out there, but with this one, Pedro's got such a tiny, sleek little signature. It's perfect when you see, and I had to have on card. I didn't want a sticker auto if I was going to keep one of him, but with this timeless design right over the Red Sox logo, it's just perfect placement. It looks like him just ready to unleash, strike out a batter. Just a classic card. I had to have a Pedro.
Could you explain the significance of the set a little bit in terms of, I know you said it's like one of the more iconic. What's the reasoning behind that? Is it just the player checklist or the first time they did, all these on-card autos? What's the reasoning behind that?
Kind of a little bit of the same. Now, in the late 90s, obviously a lot of guys were, the studs were at the end of their careers, a lot of those Hall of Famers, but it's also these 90s legends were in their primes and just starting out. So the timing was great. It's just the classic design. If you're looking at the screen, you can see kind of the red blast. Each team had some kind of computer generated blasts of their colors. It was something you really hadn't seen much on a card. And just they put the team logo, they were on card. It just classics you. You're like, wow. You could take a comment and be like, this is a beautiful card.
I like how you can look at this though, and too, without seeing the SP Authentic logo here, that it's got that same like nice, clean white, and then so like you said, so the colors based on the team. Then how we have the red here for Boston Red Sox.
There are golds. If you're looking at these little computer generated, I don't know what these are, little kind of rectangles with the rounded edges. The golds will, instead of the team color or the gray, they'll be in gold.
Okay.
So I do have a Mark Brunell gold. And I looked at it and I had the regular. I'm like, what are the differences between these two? It's not numbered. It doesn't say gold on it. But if you look at the trim, it's almost like those Bowman Chromes with the gold signature as opposed to it was the gold trim on that.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Now we're on to the big time, the Jaguar Mount Rushmore here. And this one I'm excited about because partially, it's again an example where I know the names of the players, but I don't know the significance necessarily to the team. So I'm like excited to hear you touch on that side of things, not only with the cards. So it's the first one you want to touch on here.
Well, I guess to preface, the hardest thing to do was you said four, and I'm like, all right, do I do my favorite four Fred Taylor rookies? Do I do my favorite four Jaguar cards? Do I do my favorite four Jaguar players? I just did the four Jaguar cards that, I mean, I can just take these out and just hold these things and stare at them. But they all four kind of have a story, and I'm big on the stories with the cards. The starting here to the left with the flawless. Now, you guys know what's been happening with Panini lately. It just everything will say game used, and some people are skeptical about whether that was even pulled off a rack at Dick's Sporting Goods or. But the 2015 flawless is, I will admit, this was a Black Rose purchase. And if you've been in the hobby, people talk about Black Rose and how he's hoarded all the Freddies and the LTs and all the flawlesses from that era and put ridiculous price tags on it. It was just one of those cards. I was like, you know what? You're never going to see a game used duel with the Jaguar tail. The other one, four color with the teal, on card auto, gold flawless. I actually just got it back from PSA. I sent it away, and I didn't realize there was a teeny tiny bubble in the F of his autograph. This is why the auto didn't get a 10. But I knew the card looked great. It came back a 9.9. And I don't even care about the grade. I just want it encapsulated. But I absolutely love this card. I could just sit there and hold this thing all day. It's just, if you have a 2015 flawless or you're one of those game use guys, these are what you look for. And they are impossible to find. I know one guy that's got several of them, and it's the reason you don't find them out there at all.
I love the fact too, like I can just imagine the Jaguars are a team where you get these crazy patches. I mean, you can just look at this. It's a kind of tight patch window, but you can tell, okay, logo on the left, and then probably looks like on the right would be like a, numbering, I assume on the back or something, or nameplate there. That's really
the
awesome.
teal jersey. One thing I like to try to find is the Jaguar eye. You can get the teeth, but depending on the year and what the logo was. The ones that are impossible to me to find are those patches, like inaugural season or 20th anniversary, 25th, and they'll show like downtown or a picture of the bridge. Like those are really hard to find, and they'll be on obscure players like Alan Hearns. But I just couldn't pass up these duels.
That's a blast from the past. That was a good fantasy receiver for maybe 2 seasons there. I remember
Alan Hearns. That's when Bledsoe threw. I don't know what happened. It was like maybe they were just getting killed so much in 2014, but I think they were down like 42-10 every game, and then the second half, Bledsoe would just dial it up.
Bortles, you mean, right?
Yeah, sorry.
I was like, Bledsoe's on the Jaguars in 2014. What history did I miss?
So the boat, I mean, he'd link up with Allen Robinson, Alan Hearns, just the Allens. They would always be playing catch up. But statistically, he was all right that season, but the team was horrendous.
It's interesting how these receivers too, like just you bring up Allen Robinson, it's like maybe Bortles made these guys a little bit. What the heck? They leave the team and they never have the success they had with the team. It's interesting.
Yeah, growing up, obviously a Patriot fan, that comes up in Patriot circles a lot with Belichick. A guy goes somewhere else, signs a huge deal, and it's almost predictable that the guy will end up back with Belichick in about 2 years. And he just, signed off his couch for $150,000, and all of a sudden he's in the playoffs again and making an impact. But with the Jags, I don't know, it's hit or miss. The team was horrendously run. I'm glad we kind of got rid of the GM a couple of years ago. They're trending in the right direction. Very young team, but it's actually the first time you see players talking about wanting to be here. And even recently, when they had Urban Meyer, I mean, that set Trevor's rookie year. He almost, last year was starting over, and essentially, people don't think about that when you have Urban Meyer, and it was just a colossal, redo. But yeah, it's tough with certain players letting them go in a small market. Like we said, Juwan Taylor, $80 million to the Chiefs. We weren't paying him $80 million. We've got to lock up Trevor. Josh Allen is, playing lights out this year. He's got 9 sacks, and he's up for a recontract too. And he's one of those underrated. He's not a TJ Watt name, but he's leading the NFL in hurries and QB hits and that kind of stuff. And he's like a one-man pass rush down here.
That's interesting because that's what my father-in-law and I were having that conversation the other day. It's like what the Packers seem like they lack is that identity on defense, that one game wrecker we haven't really had since, I don't know, maybe like Clay Matthews, Charles Woodson, that sort of thing. It's crazy how important that is because you think of these teams that are really good, they have a very strong offense, and they have at least one guy on defense that'll just blow a game up. Obviously like Bosa, that like those names. It's just crazy how important that is. You got to hit on one of those I guess typically it's not always a first-round pick, but a high pick, it seems like a lot of these guys are these high picks that just come in and just blow up games.
Well, I think it trickles down now to even the smaller ranks. high school and college and coaching and coming up, everybody wants the ball, everybody wants to be QB or running back. But when you're looking at the NFL, I mean, the guys that are just coveted, it's like when you look at them, you just said the Bosa's, those guys can command whatever they want. There's only like 5 or 6 elite pass rushers. There's like 3 lockdown corners, like Sauce. If there was a redraft right now, number 1 pick, it's just that kind of stuff. People don't think of defense and how sexy it is. And I know we talked about that a little while ago. I love watching the Jags on D. Usually you watch your team, they're on offense, they score, they punt, then you go run and get a beer, get some food. But I don't like missing when they're on defense, to be honest.
You almost, I always think it's a good sign when you're more comfortable with the team being on defense than you are on offense. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have those games where you can't move the ball. It's like, well, maybe the defense will do something here and we could, get a really nice field position or something. So I always feel like your team's in a nice spot when that's your mindset.
Yeah, I was chatting with a buddy yesterday and we were talking hoops. We talk hoops every day. And we're talking about the Celtics. He's like, oh, your Celtics look great this year. They're 6-0, 7-0, and they're all blowouts. And I was kind of concerned, getting rid of Marcus Smart. He was the heart and soul of the team, great defensive player. And then Robert Williams was great inside. But with the Celtics, recently they'd had guys like, Kyrie and Kemba Walker, great names, big-time scorers. Like, oh, man, Kyrie lit it up for 26 last night, or Kemba had 30. And I'm like, yeah, but he gave up 42. Neither one of these guys played defense at all. And people just watch for the offense. But true fans and people that know the sport will realize when a guy's killing, he's a minus 17, but he's the big name on your squad. Like, why? He's not helping your team. He's got flashy handles, or he can light it up from downtown. But, team players are hard to find. And we were just talking about those defensive guys, the Bosa's, the Sauce Gardners. Those are the guys you really got to hit on in the drafts. And I think teams are starting to spend more on defensive players. You need to win in the trenches. Obviously, they're not sexy, but you need linemen. But it's like the QBs just bust. All these prospects, these Ritters and Trey Lance. It's the amount of money people were spending on these cars. It's insane.
Yeah, no kidding. And then you compare back to guys like we're looking at, and it's obscene, actually.
Yeah, like what would you want? A nice Peyton, a nice Brady, or do you want to drop 10 times as much on a Jordan Love? I know you're in Packer country, but
yeah, no, 100%. Because even the real mind blowing for me lately has been like the running backs, wide receivers. Like people are paying more for guys who haven't, like literally more for a very similar card for guys who have 0 career stats versus a guy who's like 5th all time in rushing or 3rd all time in receiving. Like it's just, I don't know. You get what I mean? It's just obscene when you start to look at it, and then you're like, all right, I'll just stick over here. I'm fine over here.
Uh-huh. For sure.
So speaking of winning in the trenches, what is the next card we have coming up here?
So in the trenches here, I've got Tony Brackens. Now, couple meanings to this card. Brackens is kind of like a Jaguar legend in the fact that he was their stud on defense when the team was really good. When we were making the AFC Championship games I believe he was a rookie in 96. 96 and 99, the Jaguars made the AFC Championship game. But this card right here, he's the all-time leading sack leader for the Jags. And I want to say second place is Yan Ngakwe. He's about 30. I want to say Brackens has 55, 56 sacks, and the next guy's at like 34. And Josh Allen's right. I think he might have passed him already. So he was a legend. I mean, he would be all over the place. He was a defensive end, but he wreaked a lot of havoc. He'd have forced fumbles. I think he had 9 forced fumbles, led the NFL in 99. And, he'd be all over with interceptions, just a playmaker on D. He wasn't a huge name out of the University of Texas. I want to say second rounder, but this green PMG, they're iconic. I mean, in the hobby, everybody's like, I got to get a green PMG. I saw this thing on PWCC. It was in a BGS 8.5 slab. And I just love the, certain cards with the PMGs, the Marvel, they'll have the claw, they'll have, the background of that comic book Marvel design was just kind of great. I love this one. He's running almost like with the ball. It was a nice little action shot, but the greens, I had to have one. I ended up finding out the guy who gave it up to PWCC. And when I switched it over to PSA, he noticed, like, oh, it looks great in that. But just an iconic card for sure. The clash, the contrast with the green, the Jaguar teal. And a lot of my buddies, 90s collecting buddies, they're like, oh, Jags look great in these, and the 24Ks, anything gold. But I liked how they looked with these greens.
Hmm. That's awesome. And so thought process on the crossover, is that crossing over to PSA, was that authenticity on your side? You just want to be a little more confident in that, or?
It's funny too, because people who have known me in the hobby, the last few years, I was the biggest BGS simp. I love subgrades. That's
Yeah.
the one thing I hate about PSA. Um, you know, Kevin Randall, the captain, he would make fun of me because I would not buy a Brady if it had a 9 sub. And my reasoning was, if you have a 9 sub, you're admitting there's a minor flaw. So
Hmm.
even to the human eye, it's not truly gem. So I'd always get true gems, and I've missed out on several Brady's just because there was a 9 in edges or something obscure. You know what I mean? But with BGS, it really started scaring me lately. Their reputation, it was just like almost like there's no leadership.
Hmm.
It's kind of alarming when you look at the numbers. I'm not a follower at all, but there should be a reason why 30 times as many people are now sending to PSA. And doing the subgrades thing, I can get really OCD, anal about certain things and having to match. And a majority of my PC was now PSA. So I knew in a BGS 8.5 slab, if you've been collecting a while, some of those BGS 8.5s can gem. Now,
Hmm.
back in the day, BGS was a lot harsher. You rarely saw 8.5s and 9s. There were a lot of 8s. In the early days, a 9.5 was almost unheard of. So if you see those BGS slabs with the large font and the subgrades on the back, those are the first 2 or 3 million cards they graded the first couple of years. And some of those can gem. I actually did pretty well with a couple of those. But it was a newer 8.5. So I knew I'd take a hit. And like I said, I really don't care about the grade. I just wanted it encapsulated like all the rest. And it ended up with a 7. And it had a couple corner touch spot. I mean, these are notorious for having edge issues with the foil and whatnot, but it was really in great shape. I just like how they look.
Okay, cool. So the move was the look, and then the consistency among the PC. It sounds like.
Aesthetically, yes. And
Yeah.
also, I didn't even really want to get into this too much, but I had a little fiasco with PWCC this summer. I did go for another green. It was a
Hmm.
Kevin Hardy BGS 9, and it was listed on PWCC. And this was the same week they had, I want to say, about 5 other Jags. I was like, this must have come from Fifth Downs collection or somebody getting rid of their green set. And why are all these greens up at once? And a buddy of mine, there was an 8.5. He ended up winning that. I went splurged on the higher grade, and I hadn't even thought about the counterfeit. It just the whole fiasco with the fake stampings. I know you did an issue with Zan a
Hmm.
few weeks ago, and you talked extensively about this, but I ended up figuring out when I got the card that the stamp was fake and went through a whole process. Luckily, I knew a guy that worked for PWCC, and he helped connect me with customer service. And it's just almost to the point where you're almost scared to even go for another one. You start seeing them on some of the reds as well, but just such an iconic set. But they're, so notorious now for listing fakes, and they're still doing it, almost like turning a blind eye. And not trying to get into anything PWCC, but that was a kind of an experience for me. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm good with the one I have. If I end up finding another eventually, so be it. But
It's a weird part of the hobby, right? Because it's kind of like I'm sure they would say the onus is on the grading company, and that's why we get them graded. And then the grading company would say, well, they'd probably not blame themselves, but it's their fault. But then for also though, like any auction house, in any other industry, I would imagine they have to vet these things. You're not gonna, look at the Jordan game used jersey, all that fiasco too that there was for a little bit ago with the card porn account or whatever it was. It's like
yeah,
you get the auction houses have to vet it too a little bit. I agree with you. Kind of it's. I'm glad you got your money back. I think you did, correct? On
yes,
that one, good.
yes.
Okay, that's
But
good.
it's
Yeah,
just it didn't solve anything for the whole scheme of thing. It
yeah.
becomes a blame game. And one of the first emails I got back from them when I first initially reached out was, "This is a BGS issue," and that's kind of why I'm starting to try to keep
Mhm.
everything PSA with their guarantee. But the same week, a good friend of mine, a modest card collection, he won a green PSA Seahorn, and it turned out to be fake. And it
Mhm.
took him a while to get his refund with PSA, but they do guarantee it. And I think a lot of people are starting to see, if you got a BGS, it might be questionable authenticity. forgot to touch on that, but that played in as well.
No, that's it. Yeah, that's a good point, and that's it's a good thing to talk about. Like, it's not a fun thing to talk about, but it's important because if anyone's listening and watching this, or like likes these sets, you got to be aware of these things. Like you said too, I wouldn't have even thought of it, up until maybe a few months ago when people started making this more aware. I maybe would have casually bid on one. Well, not casually; they're expensive, but you know what I mean. Wouldn't have even realized.
Yeah, it's kind of wild when you hear someone talk about back doors or fake stamps, and then you're almost petrified to pull out your PC and be like, let me flip these over on the back and see
Yep.
if mine's actually legit.
Yep, 100%. So
Yeah.
we have another couple of 90s parallels upcoming. Which one you want to touch on first here?
So this guy here, third, I've got a Tony Baselli 1997 Skybox Star Rubies. This set has also become super iconic. I don't know what it is about these cards. You just hold them into the light. This one right here, almost a peacock design or falling leaves. It's just another one of those cards with the teal and the gold with the white kind of clash and contrast. Just really stood out. But with this one, I initially picked this card up, this very card, picked it up on eBay for like $60 back about 3 years ago. And, now it'd be unheard of to find it for 10 times that. But just 3 years ago, and as I previously told you about the Carl Yastrzemski chase, this was a side PC of mine. So I was like, well, I've got to fund it somehow. What can I consolidate? What can I move? And this was one of the cards I moved. And luckily I moved it to a Jaguar friend. Parker Cards, nice little shout out here. He's got an extensive Fred Taylor museum out there in the Bay Area. But still, he had the card and I had given it up and I'd always wanted it back. I'd emailed him a few times, texted him, tried to pry it away from his black hole of his PC. And eventually, somebody actually listed this card about 6 months ago. And it was raw. They put it up for like $500. And it got us chatting. We're like, hey, there's another Baselli up. And I was like, oh. And we started talking and really easy to deal with. I don't do a lot of trades. I really get attached to my PC until I finally make that decision. Like, all right, what do I want to move away from? Do I want to do this team set? Do I really want to go for this chase? What can I consolidate? And when you start thinking like that in your head, at least with me, it's almost like you've already moved the card. You don't think of it as a long-term PC, but I always wanted that one back. And I made a trade with him I traded him a Fred Taylor 1-1 and a couple of the 2013 selects that he didn't have. And we worked out a deal, and it was just great to finally, when you make that regret, you finally get one back that you've wanted for years. And, I did it for a chase that I eventually ended up abandoning. And it was just one of those things where I really, to be honest, didn't know the extent of, rubies and credentials and medallions about 3 years ago. I was just getting into, as I said, I was in college during this era. So it's kind of cool and nostalgic to go back and come now and learn more about them. And every week I'm finding new die cuts I never knew existed. And gosh, if I get another DM from Marino Collector, he's made me buy about 150 cards. But it's great having people like that with the knowledge, and they explain them and the circulation. And this had this version. It's really cool seeing the insight and the camaraderie on here.
No, totally. And that's a dangerous guy to get a DM from, because he
Oh,
knows
yeah.
what he's talking about too. So I'd imagine if you get a message from him, it's not he probably, doesn't know what I'm looking for. It's oh wait, yeah, whatever this is about to be, it's probably something I should bid on or go buy. That's kind of funny.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So fourth and, well, I guess eighth and final card of your Mount Rushmore here. What do we got?
So here we have the Fred Taylor Essential Credentials now. Now, Taylor is the one player who has, as you know, with the credentials, the now and the future always added together to equal a certain sum. And in 1998, they connected for 61. His now right here, this card is numbered to 60. So Taylor's the only player that's the 1-1 in the set. Now, Spinatron does not have it. To my knowledge, and anyone I know in the circle, it has not surfaced. And it's almost to the point where, like, all right, do we want to group together and go in on a box or something of 90? And it just stinks with the Manning rookie and the Moss rookie. It's like, Taylor just happened to be that year. So wax is super expensive. But this 60, this was one, I was in a local store that opened up about 2-3 years ago. And it was kind of half of it's like coins, the half was cards. And there are about 6 or 7 card stores in the Jacksonville area. So I went in and checked it out. And I'm looking in the case and I'm like, that looks like a credentials. And this guy was so unorganized. He had just opened the store and just almost monster boxes everywhere, piles of cards, just 100 deep, just in the case, and nothing labeled with a price, and just so unorganized. But this card was actually sitting on top. And I look, and when you see one of those grails or lists and you can't click bin, and your heart starts racing. And one of my buddies, this was his number one grail at the time. It was in my top 5, but it may have been like 4th or something. And saw the card. I texted him a picture. This guy's notorious for never leaving his house. He goes, where? Basically, I had to wait to buy the card, but I honestly had to look at the back just to be sure, to see if it said now and said the serial. And as I'm doing so, a little kid walked in the store and brought his box and said, hey, do you want to buy anything? So the guy, I didn't want to cut off a kid. I had to wait out while the guy looked through the kid's whole collection. So that 8 or 9 minutes just sitting there looking at this thing, I'm like, oh, I've been looking for one of these. So I ended up purchasing it. The guy gave me a great deal. It was under $100. And my buddy came over that night, got the card, and I ended up getting this one in a deal from a buddy on Instagram, essentially Lucas. And it looked clean. I sent it in. It got a 9, and I couldn't be happier. And it just, when you find a grail for a friend, and the grail's higher on their list, it's kind of fulfilling. And you kind of know, like, I'll get the chance to get one of these again. It all comes full circle, and I believe in karma and that kind of stuff. So it'll happen. And people have done awesome things for me in this hobby. And that's just another thing. Like, the connections and networks have really helped a lot of us who are collectors with maybe not getting a card, but getting a contact or getting a link or getting a lead. And it goes from there. And the community is amazing.
Yeah, it's obscene. I've mentioned I've been working on this set 2013 Select Golds for a while, and I counted up finally. I'm at 49 out of 150, which feels insane, after only a few months. But I know that's going to slow down. But at least half of them were from, oh, I'm at a show and I found this, or oh, I've had this for a while, or it's, hey, did you see this? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, it slipped my save search. I don't know how. Oh, it doesn't say gold medal or something like that. It's been refreshing to see how important that is. And I was always worried that, if you share your cards, it might get hyped up, because sometimes you still go back to that 2020 mindset where that was happening. And then now I've realized, people might get a more interest in the set a little bit. Who knows? I don't think any of us have that big of an audience where it really affects it that much. But in actuality, I found it actually definitely helps. And then you get those connections, and, you find other people collecting it and that sort of thing. So it definitely is more beneficial than it is harmful, I think.
Right. And you get to almost talk things into existence. Maybe someone come out of the woods just discussing and showcasing them. That's true for sure. I found that out as well.
All right, PK. So I know we have a game coming up. Maybe if we can end here with a fast 5. Does that work with you?
Okay.
Okay. So first one, what is your favorite 90s parallel, point blank, design-wise, looks-wise?
Not a particular year?
No, any year. Just like across the scheme of it. Yeah.
You said 90s or 00s?
Either. I guess we'll do either.
Okay. I would go with 2005 Finest. And the reason being, maybe this is some of like the math geek in me. I love how the player in the center has the circular pattern around it. And then there's some diagonal lines leading away from the player toward the corners of the cards. And then the square X factors just contrast it all and ties it all back together. And Finest was weird with the backgrounds being designs and not actually the rest of the image. It was just the player imposed there. But that set does it for me. I've got a couple of the gold X Factor 10s, and they're just part of the centerpieces of my collection. I love looking at those things. So
second one here, if you could change the history of one Jaguars game, what game would that be? Change the outcome.
Miles Jack wasn't down. I don't know if you know the context with that, but this was the 2018 January AFC Championship game in Foxborough. The Jags had shut down the Patriots, and in the fourth quarter, Edelman had gotten injured. Gronk wasn't playing. I mean, basically, Belichick was throwing out plumbers and electricians, just a bunch of little white stiffs running around at receiver, and the Jags were up, I think, 20-6, and Miles Jack tackled Dion Lewis, Patriots running back, and he fumbled. So Miles Jack recovered it, picked it up, and ran in for a TD. I mean, would have iced the game. And the refs said he was down. He was never touched. It was just a big thing here in Jacksonville. And I think that's part of that little, Jacksonville's the 29th largest market. I mean, they get no media hype. And this was, New England, Foxborough. They were kind of like the Chiefs now, just the league's darling. And that was the game I was so torn with. But Miles Jack wasn't down. the Jags had that game, and that they would have gone to the Super Bowl and played the Eagles. So that was the year the Jaguars had that legendary defense. And if you remember that Super Bowl, that was the Patriots Eagles, the first Super Bowl that never had a punt. The Jaguars would have made the Eagles punt for sure. Nick Foles, they probably would have sacked him about 12 times.
And the third question here is your favorite Jag of all time. I don't know if you mentioned it. You might have mentioned it. I don't think so. Someone asked that.
Just look right above my head there. Freddie Taylor, if you can see on video. Freddie was just so legendary. It kind of unfortunate that he played in the era of all these workhorse Hall of Fame running backs, the Tomlinsons. It just kind of came out right as, Terrell Davis, those guys, they got all the notoriety. They made the Super Bowls. They were the number one fantasy pick. But, you hear people rave about Freddie, mostly opponents, the Ray Lewises, the Troy Polamalu's. And the only people that really noticed are people here in Jax and people who had him on their fantasy team. He's 17th on the all-time rushing list, and he is the highest guy that has not gotten in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, AP and Gore are ahead of him, but they're not eligible yet. But I just hope he's not like the highest guy to never get in. He's on a short list. There are 5 players who've ever rushed for over 11,000 yards and still averaged over 4.6 a carry. And this is still with those final 2 years in New England where he did like nothing and got like 3 yards a carry. But the list is O.J. Simpson, Jim Brown, Barry Sanders, Adrian Peterson, Fred Taylor. End of list. So it just, he was so amazing. If you look at YouTube clips, he's just so electric. If you ever see a clip of that game where they made Marino retire, it was the 99 playoffs. Jaguars won 63-7 in Marino's final game. And he's just so shifty. He was a big guy, but he had that turbo gear, and he just had these Barry Sanders moves for a guy that was like 225, and he was gone. If you didn't get him at that second layer, the safety missed him. He was electric to play. I love watching clips of him, and it's hard, being a guy that came out in '98 because you had Moss just totally dominated the nation. And, Manning was 1-15, but you knew he was going to be something special. So it was hard with the guys he came out with, but he was amazing and electric.
You're convincing me to keep Fred Taylor in my mind when I'm looking at these 98 sets, because I've always been like, okay, for the atomic refractors, like those are the core 3 would be like Woodson, Moss, Manning that I want. But then I've also added a Hines Ward. I picked up a Hines Ward for fairly reasonable. So I'll have to keep an eye out for Fred Taylor now.
Yeah, there are a few hardcore of us into Freddy's, and it's evolved from IG chats into now it's iMessages, and we're constantly texting each other about this or that. And like I said, with the brotherhood that happens. So it's hard finding certain players. And I know Manning and Moss have their own chats. Even Woodson, there's some hardcore people that keep his PMGs way up there.
Awesome. So then 4th question here is one quick tip you'd have for yourself 5 years ago if you could go back and say, hey, dude, do this, or like, hey, dude, don't do this, that kind of thing. Any tips?
I would say collect what you like. A lot of times we get caught up in what's going to disappear, what's getting popular. And, I find myself, as we talked a little bit about before, you try to figure out what you're consolidating. If I'm going to go for a team set, if I'm going to go for a particular issue, sometimes I have some mindset in mind, and it's constantly evolving. And it's tough to figure out, long-term, what is my goal? Where do I want to be? Do I want to have 50 cards? Do I want to have 300 cards? Do I want to just have this era? Just go for this? And it's hard now with you got Panini. I'm more of an old school Jags collector. And the only Paninis I have are that Taylor Flawless. And if there's like a Baselli, Black Finnet 1-1, I've got both of those. But I don't really go for Panini cards. I don't know how it's going to be with Fanatics. But am I going to stick to this era and really fine tune myself to just these 20 cards I like, just these PMGs? I don't know. It's really tough to, I'm constantly making decisions and then moving stuff that I don't have dupes of. And I think that's the hardest thing, is just having a mindset long-term I find that super difficult.
Awesome. Makes sense. I know I would tell myself football cards exist. That's the first line I would tell myself is football cards exist. Go look at those.
Well, it's like good thing we're not basketball. I mean, some basketball cards are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I missed the boat on a lot of it.
Right.
So the 5th and final question is, if somebody's listening and they can help you out, what is the number one card you're looking to find? And we may have already discussed it. I mean, I have one in mind that you've already kind of mentioned.
Well, I mean, we've seen recently the 24Ks just take off. if a Fred Taylor 24K ever popped up, there would be such a bidding war in our circle because I only know 2 people that have one, and there's 24 of them, and it's his rookie. I mean, those things just, I mean, if you, I'm sure you have a couple of the 24Ks. Do you have one yet?
Zero
Oh
out
God.
of my budget at this point for the guys that I like. Yeah.
They are not cheap, but I've actually moved on from my gold 99s because once I got a 24K, just holding them in hand, they make the gold 99s look like a base card. I mean, just the shine, it's so surreal. If a Fred Taylor 24K ever came up, I would get rid of half my collection to if I had to. That's just I think that's kind of unrealistic. So that's why I'm trying to keep to like the future's finest 75 or something like that. But if a 24K ever popped up, I'd be all over that.
Yeah, and there's a shout out for Northwoods Card Collector because we got together last week and he brought his Peyton, and I was like, we're sitting at the restaurant, I'm like, this waitress has no clue how cool this dude is because he has this awesome card.
And Jordan too, I've got to give him a shout out. Thanks. He was actually the first guy. This was my first experience with finding an IG buddy at a national show, and he came across a Fred Taylor 1999 now, and those are ghosts. It's numbered to 20. And, you know, I had the Future 71, and he's like, hey, this guy has this at the Wisconsin Dells show. You know, do you want it? And I was like, absolutely. And it turned out the guy didn't have IG. It didn't have, it was, you know, logistically, it was kind of a nightmare, but kind of got in touch with him, I think, through Facebook or something. But just one of those things where somebody knew what you needed. And that's where like the networking first came in. And that was my first experience. And that Jordan's like, hey, this guy's got this for $250. And it turns out the guy had just pulled it. He ripped a case of 99. Yeah, exactly. Of 99 EX, and he ended up landing a Taylor. So it worked out in my favor. But that's the kind of stuff I like doing because then it all comes back full circle.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, PK. This was super fun. If somebody wants to reach out and maybe just say, hey, awesome episode, or if they have questions, that sort of thing, where can people find you?
PK32 Sports Cards.
Appreciate it. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of like, hey, this card was cool. You know, teach me about this. Hopefully we'll see. Get some new.
Hey, man, I've enjoyed the chat. I know we always talk here and there on IG, but this has been great, man. I enjoy and cheers.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for hopping on. I really appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Likewise. Thanks, Austin.